So here we are. A very warm welcome to this session and presentation. I'm Claude, a leadership expert, teacher and consultant since more than 25 years. And I'm most in the area of leading self and leading relationships. And I'm really looking forward to sharing some of my thoughts, beliefs, and experiences with you in this group. My heart is beating right now because what you cannot know is that I had a few technical issues before entering the room. And so I could apply a few things right away that I will share with you in this session. I'm aware that every one of you in this group, and if I'm well informed, we are more than 150 people in this session. Every one of you has as valuable experiences and beliefs and thoughts to share than I do. And I say that, and I mean that really, because I would like to encourage you to do that whenever there is an occasion, because we never know when other people around us might be inspired by some of our shared experiences. I also trust that most probably it was your, let's call it, evolutionary self bringing you to this session, and therefore even more welcome. But let's maybe first, before I start the presentation, just take a few moments to tune in. Each and every one of you, as you practice maybe already, or if you don't, you might want to focus a few moments on your breath, on your breathing, just to tune in and to focus your presence. And you might now even tune in a little bit, knowing that we are a bigger group. You might want to feel just for a moment this collective space, the space, but actually we as a bigger group of individuals create for the next roughly 40 minutes. It is an amazing occasion, opportunity. I first was prepared to use slides, yet when I tested, I recognized that it would pull away my attention during the presentation. So intuitively, I had this clear signal, I don't use any visuals, and I'm sorry for the ones who appreciate visuals, but you know that you will be able to record, watch the recorded session. There is a Q&A function for questions that you want to ask during the session. If you have any technical issues, there is a chat feature you can use. So in this presentation, what I'd like to do is first share with you what being human at the core really means for me, and why this is so important, maybe especially in challenging times. I'd like then to focus on first 3 sources of natural human power that I experience as being underestimated everywhere, be it in private and in professional life. And I'll mention it two more in addition if there is time. And at the end, we'll have a few minutes for questions. The sources of power for you to already know that I'll touch are first our heart, the non-physical heart and its power, presence, our authentic self, and the tool, if there is time, because they're very important, shadow and healing. So let's start with this question, what human being really means in the context of leading others, but also leading ourselves. I'll mention a few points I'm quite sure they're obvious somehow. We all know them. We know we have these in common, yet when we're stressed, when we are under pressure, we get lost, we might not anymore remember them. So the first one, very simple, is we are born very helpless. Let's be honest. There is no exception. If you compare with some other species, some animals, yeah, they have sometimes better luck after a few hours, maybe can be on their feet, at least some. We can. So we are born helpless. We need support of significant others. And we might feel that this is the case actually through her life right now in these challenging times. There's a lot we cannot influence, we cannot control, and we need others. It's just a human fact. The second is as obvious. We come and we go. We know for our physical life there is an end. There is no exception. And yes, sometimes we forget, but many fears that we have during our life, even on a pause of development, they might go back to this deeper fear, knowing that there is an end. Number three, we all make during our lives many diverse experiences. Nice ones, beautiful ones, great ones, happy ones, but also difficult ones. Maybe sometimes even painful. We have success and we experience failures, even sometimes some mistakes. And yes, that is just part of our human life. And I guess there is no exception. Number four, we do have equal basic human needs. From research, we know today that besides our drive to survive, our need to be loved, yes, there are two very basic human needs. The one is safety, psychological safety, and the other one is autonomy. So we want to feel safe at the one hand, and we want to feel autonomous, which also means controlling our situation as much as we can at the other hand. It's not a contradiction. It's probably rather a tension field. And we all experience that in one or another way. We are all confronted as human beings with similar questions. Be it who we really are, what life is about, the meaning of life is, where we come from, where we go, many of those questions. Some ask them explicitly, some maybe don't, but they're somehow around. And then we all have some very similar capacities. Like, oh, so I hear it's difficult to hear me. I get a little bit closer to the mic, if that's okay. So we all have very similar capacities. Like, we can meet each other with care, with kindness, with compassion. That's true. Yet, at the same time, we all get pulled away from these qualities. Yes, that's how we function as human beings. And we cannot change it, but we can deal with it. Because we do have our ego, and sometimes it comes when we don't have an issue with it, and sometimes it comes in between when it is not serving us. We all have head, heart, and hands, and I'll talk about some of those potentials in a minute. And at the end, we are all connected. We know that, and we especially feel that in these times. Now, why am I mentioning all these common things? As I said, when we get stressed, busy in our lives, be it private or when we are working, we just used to forget. The question is, do we meet other people remembering that we have so much in common? Some research actually would confirm that we have 99.8% DNA base in common. That's somehow amazing. So when we talk about human leadership and self-leadership, the main thing for me is we accept the fact that we're all human, that we live within the human condition. Maybe even more than accepting, we can embrace it and just say, yes, that's how it is. From my experience, it brings a lot of possible relaxation and relief, because there is then nothing to do right, wrong, better, but we can just accept together that's how we are as human beings. For the ones that work with other people, with groups, whatever you do with them, what I do with groups is I do very regular check-ins. I call these even very quickly, just so people know what is the state of every individual that I am connected to in a certain environmental situation. If you do that regularly, and people are open and honest, they can feel together with you that each of us can be continuously in different states. And once this is a state of happiness, and once this is a state of pain, once it is a state of being nervous maybe or stressed, and once relaxed, and that's how life works. So human leadership means to just accept and embrace that as many times as possible, especially when it gets difficult. I'd like to move now to the sources of human power that, in my experience, we underestimate on a regular basis. And I'll share my experience first with the heart. We know our physical heart is essential, but so can be our non-physical heart. There are actually 4 qualities that our non-physical heart can bring to us in our life, also when it gets difficult. And the first is resilience. You might have heard about the Heart Math Institute in the US. They research the non-physical heart since many years. They have found out that if you train your heart with very simple exercises, and in a few minutes I show you one, it takes out the stress of the system and it balances the heart coherence. Now, how heart coherence means it is the balance of the rhythm of the heart. And when we are stressed, when we are too busy, when we're challenged, when we're concerned, this rhythm gets out of balance. So when we train the heart in those moments, the exercise I'll show you later, within a few minutes, you can get back to balance. Refocus yourself, be clear about what's needed from you, and that's just great because it's quite simple. The second quality is passion. It's this energy that we all know, you might have experienced, when you just do what you like to do and what you are very good at doing. In my case, for instance, it is, amongst other things, facilitating groups, discovering new things, learning with other people. I forget time, I'm just fully in it. Yes, there might be people who say now in these very challenging times, it's maybe difficult to get there. Might be, but we do have different passions. So the recommendation is to not let us too much pull away from those energies that we have available, even when it gets hard. The next quality of a heart, also maybe obvious, is its compassion. We can say also caring, love. And I know from my work with leaders that in the working environment, you know, maybe for many there's a bit too much to talk about love and use this expression. So what I do then, I mention and use some of the qualities that we might say go with love. So it's the caring. It is, for instance, patience. We can regularly ask ourselves, be it private or when we work, are we patient? It is an expression of love. Patient with ourselves, patient with others. We accept someone as a human being as he or she is when we meet them, or full of things that should be different, that trigger our emotions. And we just be with it and say, yes, sometimes we want people to change things. Maybe they have to change, but can we just take them, accept them as human beings as they are? Forgiveness goes with that to a certain extent. And so there are many qualities of our heart that we always have available. And yes, many other things from our mind and our ego come in between. And it is our task then to maybe just recognize and focus back to those qualities. And I'll talk later about what comes in between. An example from my work, I have decided some years ago that I prepare my coachings, group work, sessions with other people by focusing on my heart, opening my heart, and being with all these people in this accepted way of you are okay, I am too. And you know what I have experienced is that the people that might be resisting in a group or rejecting things or that are hard or difficult, however you want to call it, I just cannot experience that anymore. It just goes away. And my guess is it is because of my attitude that goes to the heart. And then the last quality of our heart, underestimated, is the capacity for intuition. Our heart is a center for intuition, for the not conscious information that we can rely on when we actually need it to help us, support us, sometimes protect us. Impulses, feelings that come up, We all sometimes have them, sometimes we have not because we're too busy with our mind. But this capacity of our heart is always available. What a great tool when it gets difficult. Because if we can rely on our heart giving us the right information to take a decision, be it in private or in professional life, we can trust and guide it. I want to give you a quick example I experienced, not myself, but a coach told me who is working with intuitive decision making. We had once a head of HR who was in the recruiting process with a very strong professional. They had a perfect CV. Everything seemed to be perfect. This guy had like all the qualifications that you could want to have as an employer. And yet, this head of HR had a kind of feeling that something was not really fine. He didn't know what, he had no idea. He worked with the coach, they did some intuitive decision exercise with images also, and it became clear that really something was wrong. So he still didn't know exactly what it was. He set up another meeting with his candidate and he really challenged him. He asked deep questions and finally found out that 3 months before he was released from prison. Amazing story somehow. Intuition is at the center of our heart. So to use more the power of our heart, it makes sense, it is powerful. I'd like to show you the simplest heart exercise from the Heart Math Institute right now. So take 2 or 3 deeper breaths right now first. And then breathe in, imagining you breathe in your heart. And breathing out, you imagine to breathe out from your heart. And just repeat that 3 times. You breathe in your heart. You breathe out your heart. If it's easier, you close your eyes. And you just do that. You breathe in your heart. And you breathe out from your heart. And that's it. And as I said at the beginning, the research shows that after 3 minutes, you get your heart balance in full coherence, and you open up your intuition, and you open up compassion. So that's great. Let's move to the second source of power, which is presence. For many of you, maybe nothing new. But what does presence really actually mean? We all say we should be more in the now, we should be more present. At the core for me, in my experience, especially when I work with other people, it means to recognize when our mind starts getting in the past. When our thoughts are about the past, there's nothing wrong with that yet. We cannot be at the same time in the present. The same if we have thoughts around the future. Many times it's concerns. Okay, so then we cannot be at the same time present. And it is a different energy. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Yet, the more we can be present, the more we open up a space to see more, to recognize more, to feel more, and to get maybe even, again, some information that comes from another place useful for that moment. So training presence, of course, is very relevant. I see so many people having so many assumptions about others, about life, about contexts, about situations, but this is all constructed from the mind. And if we train our mind to just be present, we can see how it is at this moment, really. And so we open a space for awareness, for our consciousness, and we get into the state of being. So what I do very regularly, and I did it also preparing this session, is just getting into my presence. Connect with myself. Connect with others. Obviously, in this session, that's not so easy because I cannot see anyone. And still, I can focus my attention to the now. It helps so much to avoid so many misunderstandings. Know that the natural implication of human interaction is misunderstanding. So with presence, we focus on what it really is, and we are not trapped too much in our mind's stories, because we all have our stories. Applied to our daily life, we become more focused, clear, and we can put our full attention to what we're doing at the moment. When we lead others, this is so important, because in today's times, we are distracted and we allow ourselves to be distracted all the time on PC, but every day. And also, what it really helps is when it's challenging, we can more and more realize that in a certain moment, all the problems, issues, concerns that our mind will bring to the table, they just disappear. And then now, they just disappear. What it also helps, and I give you an example from myself in my private life. For instance, when I see my partner, my wife, to feel upset, to be angry, or anything like that, or to argue, normally you would just react. I would just react and get into something which is, we all know it's not helpful or useful. Yet with the training and the practice of presence, there is a moment where I can pause and stop, and then I can see through the arguments. I can see through what I first perceive, which is resistance. I can see a certain kind of frustration, pain on the other side. I can probably even see something like the little child, the little girl, through what I hear and sense, and my intention to react just fades away, and I can choose to respond. So presence helps us to more and more catch those moments, to choose how we want to respond, especially when it is difficult. Now, with presence also comes mindfulness. Mindfulness even is a step further, goes back to the heart, to the humanness, to the being human, because we just accept things in the very moment as they are. We don't want to change them, we judge them, we say yes, an inner yes to what is from our heart. So this is a very powerful source we have. We always have it available. And yes, also we can practice and we can try. So before we move to the third element, why not just pause again right now? Feel for a moment your breath right now. Just follow your breathing. When you inhale and exhale, don't have to change anything. Don't have to do anything. Just be and feel your breath. Thoughts might come, and that's okay. Let them come, and let them move. Any other perception might come, and let them go again. Practicing presencing is simple, yet not easy to do. What you might recognize by just doing this very short little exercise, at the same time you are present with your breath, you can too much think about problems, concerns, and you recognize that they are a construction from the mind. Imagine how helpful this is in daily life. If more and more you can recognize right now, lots of information about so many difficult things, everything. The problem is not having thoughts. Our issue is to identify with those thoughts. Through a freeze, I hope that you can still see and hear me. Otherwise, someone will have to tell me. Yeah, now it works again. So the third aspect, source power, is our authentic self. Thank you. Is our authentic self. When we focus on our heart, we use our heart capacity and we use our presence, there is a high chance over time we more and more connect to our authentic self. Authentic self, for me, includes the connection to the personal why. Why am I here? Why are we here? And you know, this is a very potentially spiritual question, but you can make it very practical. When I work with people, what we do is we identify the core talent, and we tell them that I'm not talking about a skill, but a quality that I have, you have, that is unique to yourself in terms of, let's say, how you challenge other people, you enable others. In my case, it is inspiring others. Something we do without actually too much being aware that we do it. So a core gift we have that has an impact on others. And the other part of the equation for the personal why is a core value, a core concern that we have for this world. So in my case, it is the value of humanity, of being human. No wonder this is my topic in this session. So when you put the two things together, the talent, inspiring, the value, human, what it gives is I inspire open people to discover the being human, their humanity, and to unleash their human spirit. So this is my example. It has helped me tremendously in my working and private life to refocus on this quality. For years, I have probably used it, but not consciously. So today, I look for opportunities, and there are plenty around. So I can only encourage you by practicing the heart, presence, and maybe some other developmental things to get to that core, which is from the beginning already there. It's nothing we have to look for to create. It is a unique personal gift which is available. Now, human leadership means you accept that this is a source of power and you help others to identify it. It's amazing what can happen out of that. So the authentic self is one of those great sources of power. Sounds all good, all great. And here comes the force, which is the shadow. We all have it. It's the hidden force that holds us back sometimes. And we used to see this as something, and I say holding back, because it see that the hidden forces, maybe the hidden emotions from earlier life, from our biography, as something we have to fight, and sometimes we resist. How about including it as a source of power? Instead of having it against, having it for our growth path, our development, whatever we want to achieve, our dreams, our visions. We all have these, let's say, moments where if we're honest, we know this is coming from an earlier place in our life. Now we can confront it or not. I have confronted many of mine for a longer time, and you cannot plan when those go away, when they change or transform. What you can do is you can open up, just open up with your humanity, compassion for yourself, to confront them, to look at all these shadow elements, and in the best case to start integrating them. Then these forces, they work for you. I make an example about myself. Again, I found out based on feedback from other people again and again that when it is about exposing myself, sometimes I hesitate. Now, I'm not talking about me being, the consultant or facilitator. I can still hide with my deepest beliefs or my deepest kind of experiences to share with others. That's why this session is a great opportunity for me. In my way, confronting the shadows, I found out several sources of the fear to not expose myself too much. Some coming from my biography, some from my even early adult life, and some, maybe they even come from other lives, however you want to include that too. Yet, the confronting those forces, those shadows, and put light on them, knowing that that can be painful, knowing that I make myself vulnerable like this, has been very impactful and powerful for my way forward. So I can only encourage you to actually have the courage to do that. If you're interested, there is a really great book that goes into the topic of vulnerability. It is called Dare to Lead from Brené Brown. So finally, we do have the capacity to heal. And yes, of course, it's true. Sometimes we need help, but sometimes we can do some things I was mentioning on our own. if we are human. Open up, accept that we all do have those aspects, those hidden aspects. Maybe share with others, be with the emotions when they come up, and just allow to happen what needs to happen. You know, this has been very brief and short, but I want to sum up because you want to have a few minutes maybe to ask a question or looking at questions. For the ones that now say, okay, fine, great, but human leadership, does that really work in practice? Read the book of Bob Chapman called Everybody Matters. It's a case that shows that absolutely it is not only possible, but it has great impact on the well-being of people at work as much as even economically. With that, I guess I'd like to stop and use the few last minutes for some questions. I see that there is no question in the Q&A, at least so far. If you right now have one, please just raise it. I still don't see anyone. So let me sum up then. I hope I could share with you a few aspects around human leadership and self-leadership. They are dear to me. They're all based on my personal experience. The first one is to just accept the fact that we are humans, function as humans, give yourself and others the relief and the relaxing that this is okay as it is. However it is, even if of course, oh, here I see a question coming up. So let's focus on this one. Great question. Sometimes if you show your heart too much as a leader, people can take advantage of you. How can you balance heart with leadership? A very great question. So my recommendation is you ask your heart what it recommends to you. And then you use the techniques and practices I was saying probably with presence to find out how, to what extent it is necessary to just also, because this is totally fine, protect you also against what you say that others could take advantage. Yet I'm pretty much sure that if you really ask your heart and you use the heart for your intuition, you will find a way that actually there's a void that others can take advantage, because the taken advantage is probably exactly one of those potential blind spots that only way you might find out that if you confront it and work on it, you can transform it. Because let ourselves be taken advantage from others maybe is also starting again with ourselves. It's just an assumption, but this would be my recommendation. So let's see if there is another one. No, that was the one. So I hope that you found a few of those thoughts inspiring, helpful, and if you want to know more, just reach out. Thank you very much for your attention and dedication, and have a great day.
Okay, Claude, thank you so much. I'll turn my video back on.